Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Friday Business Intelligence Tip. Today, we're going to be talking about Power BI licenses. Now, Power BI licenses is a topic that I've been dealing with for a while now, but in the last week, I've had two or three different discussions with customers in regards to it. And you'd think something like that would be fairly straightforward, but it actually is a little bit confusing. And so I'm going to go through the various Power BI licensing modes and how to decide what to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to my other screen here with PowerPoint, and I distilled down a few things. Now, what makes it so confusing to use? Well, if you search the web and you go to Microsoft's site for Power BI pricing, you're going to run across a page that looks something like this. And it outlines Power BI Pro, Power BI Premium, and then it puts per user and per capacity. You'll see another screen that talks about Power BI Report Server, and in some cases it talks about Power BI Embedded. Now, each one of those is a unique thing, and they're really not all necessarily related to each other. So as you dive into it, you'll end up getting more and more confused. So what I did was I really distilled it down into, there's actually two decisions you really have to understand. The first is just break down the problem into two different topics. And number one is, what do you need to store or process your analytics data and content? And this really is the key. And the second one is, what type of users do you have? Viewers, publishers, data architects, report authors, just understanding what the users need to do. But really, the first thing that's going to drive you in the type of license you need is, what do you need to store or process your data? Now, Microsoft has done a great job of letting you get started with Power BI for free. So they give everyone that signs up a free license, basically, to have storage out on the internet. So you can create content and store it out on the internet. You can view it and so forth. And so they give you a free area. So there actually are two different ways you can store your data. One is you can use that free area, and the second one is you can pay for a premium storage place to put that additional data. Now, most people think, well, I'm just going to do the free one. So what free is a section of the Azure environment where it is shared with other users. So let's say you say to process something at 7 a.m., it may process at 7:05 a.m. Just depending on the busyness of the system. It's really not just your area. It's a shared place that they sliced out and said, you can use this to store your reports, your data, and so forth. The premium one, on the other hand, is an area that's set aside just for your organization. Now, when do you use the free area versus the premium area? And really what it comes down to is this slide, and you can almost ignore these topics on the top here that say Power BI Pro, Power BI Premium per user, and per capacity. I'll come back to those. But instead, if you just focus on this first column that's labeled Power BI Pro, you can think of this storage area as the free portion. So you can store your data models up to 1 gigabyte for free. Anything beyond 1 gigabyte, you need a premium plan. So that's usually what drives most organizations to need a premium model to store their data. So if you are just a individual data analyst or a worker that's working with some information, you might be able to get by with the 1 gigabyte limit on the free side, but more than likely you're going to need a premium storage area if you have more than 1 gigabyte of data. So while it's tempted to think, well, I'll try and find a way to shoehorn everyone into the free storage place, more than likely you're going to need a premium area. So in the driving place, there are some differences besides just the data size. One is the time how many times a day you can process the data and so forth. But what I see is usually it's the data size. The minute you're going to go beyond 1 gigabyte, you're kind of stuck with going to a premium model. So just keep that in mind. Most enterprises today are going to need premium. So, and why is that a big deal? Well, if I go back to that other slide, you'll notice the cost difference. Ignore this per user. This was a newer thing that came in, and just say, the free model, we're getting it at $9.99 a user for free versus $5,000 per month. And they call this capacity. But when you see the term capacity, just know that that really means the storage and processing capabilities. And I'll get into each one of those details here shortly. But up here I talked about AKA capacity. So just know that most organizations are going to need premium for that. Once you know your storage type, then that can drive the type of individual user licenses you need. If you are talking a free model, anyone that you want to share that content with needs what's called a Power BI Pro license. So going back to this item for $9.99, if you're using the free storage, every user you want to share that with, basically they're going to need a Power BI Pro license. And there's a note on their site that depending on your version, if you're doing Office 365, you may get some Power BI Pro licenses thrown in with that. But if not, it's $10 per user per month. So that's for their free storage to be able to publish your report out there. And I'm going to use the term report generically in this case, just for content. So let's say you publish your report up to the free model. You want to share that. Each user you want to share that with is $10 per user per month. And that's for all the reports you put in there. Now, if you have a premium capacity storage where you publish that report to the premium, any user you want to have access to that, they don't have to pay a thing. It can be free users at that point. So once you have a premium capacity, you really can publish the report in there, and any user you want to have access, they can do that. So if you do the math on this, what is that, 10 times 500, I guess? If you know you're going to have more than 500 users, you absolutely are going to need the premium, and you don't have to even bother with the pro licenses. With the exception of number 2, any user you want to have be a report writer, a report author, or modify the reports, they will need a pro license. So if they're just viewers, if you have a premium, you don't have to have a pro license. But if you want a user to be able to create their own reports or publish a report or modify a report, they will need a pro license. So just keep that in mind. So basically, report authors and analytics people will need a pro license at the $10 per user per month, regardless of if they're going the free storage route or the premium capacity route. You will need that license that's there. So that's kind of the driving force that in either case, report authors will need a pro license. Most organizations will need premium capacity. So let's say you're a large retail chain that's got 1,000 users and 10 of them are report authors. In that case, what you're going to do is you're going to license a premium capacity for your storage, and then for your report authors, the 10 of them, they will need the Power BI Pro license, so $100 a month, basically the 10 times 10. You'll pay for that. So you'll pay the storage capacity, and then for the 10 pro users. The other 990 just report viewers don't need to pay anything. They're just viewers of the content that are published out here. So that's kind of how you think through that. Now, not to confuse things any further, there's the Power BI Premium per user. And in that case, it's a special license that Microsoft just put in place that works good for a middle ground of small organizations, let's say consulting companies or things that have just a small number of real power users. You get all the features of the premium item, but the data size model is slightly less. You get, instead of 400 gigabytes a day when you go with the premium capacity as a starting point, you get 100 gigabytes So it's not quite the full way, but it's definitely more than one per day. So it's a way of kind of high-powered analytics, data analysts, or consulting companies that have just maybe not a ton of users, but are very powerful users. And in that case, they pay $20 per user per month to get at that. So it gives you some of the premium capabilities without having to necessarily go all in on the per capacity. Now, with that being said, any organization of any size, because the difference here is anything you publish to the per capacity, the non-free storage area for regular, any user can see it, the free, the Power BI Pro, either one can see that. When you do a per user capacity, all the people that access that data you publish do need a per user premium license as well. So you don't get those free users to be able to access the content. So if you're an organization of any size, you'll go the per capacity route. Now they have different licenses within this. This says 5,000. It's actually a scale that's based on really the size of the machines you need, how many processors and the size of the disk and so forth. So this starts at 5,000, but it can go up to 25,000 per month. So it's just going to depend on how big of an organization and how much data and analytics you want to store into that. So kind of the moral of the story that I'll break it down to for you today is most organizations are going to need a premium per capacity. And that will give you a number of features. And I didn't go through all of the features that you can find on their website as far as paginated reports and XML endpoints and some of those different types of data sources and so forth, because you do get more things with the premium per capacity as far as features go. But really what it comes down to is the size of the data. You're probably going to get the per capacity. And then when it comes to do individual users need a license? If they're just report viewers on the per capacity, they do not. But if they're report authors, then you'll need the Power BI Pro license to get at that. So just comes down to you'll probably license a per capacity, and report authors, you'll need a license for Power BI Pro. And if they're just viewers, you do not. So hopefully that helped kind of clear up a little bit of the different licenses that you'll see out there for Power BI. Don't get confused that the per capacity and per user and so forth. And hopefully that will help you make a decision that you'll need to go per capacity, and then each author will be a Power BI Pro user. So hopefully you found that helpful. And we'll get together again next week as I'm going to continue down the process of Power BI, and we're going to get into some features of building out some reports for the first time, kind of going from there. Thank you for your time today, and we look forward to talking to you again next week.